Harvard, Yale, Princeton. These are just a few of the many prestigious schools America has to offer its well over 300 million citizens, with the list of accomplishments due to their unrelenting strive for knowledge, including landing on the moon and McDonald's French fries. There is a question that has plagued the minds of many a people abroad. Why do so many of your citizens choose to be as dumb as pig shit? I am Sir David Attenborough, and I would like to invite you to join me as I take a look at a funny little group of people. These are the mega morons of America. Between the overserved and underdressed senior citizens of Florida to the slack-jawed yokels holding down porches in Alabama, the MAGA community is quite a collection of various idiots. For example, Geraldine McCluster from Texas. She believes that some Jesus person from the Stone Age did magic tricks on Sundays and that fetuses have beating hearts the moment of conception. There really is no reason for Geraldine to believe either of these things. There are countless sources, medical professionals and historians who could explain to her how wrong these beliefs are. Maybe if any of those educated folks have a background in teaching, they might even be willing to speak to her as though she was a child to give her a better chance at understanding. Sadly, though, we will never know. Being a member of this bunch of sad, confused idiots, Geraldine doesn't have either the ability or desire to listen to reason. Fox News, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and even that drunk Hispanic lady. That's who will be responsible for all of her thinking now. While to some that might sound like poor judgment, to hand over your entire thought process to a news organization that openly tells lies, but for Geraldine, the choice was simple. With the extra time she has freed up from the chore of thinking, she is now able to focus more of her time on her favorite hobbies, being an absolute nightmare of a person to speak to and an unnecessary and costly burden on society. The next oxygen thief we are going to take a look at is Charles Gunnison. Charles grew up in Blue Ridge, Georgia, and managed to stay in school long enough to complete his 9th grade, a first for his family. The next thing Charles knew, he had spent the last 3 decades working at the sawmill during the day and spending what little income he made in the tavern at night. Charles felt like it was time for a change of pace. So, after deciding to leave what remained of his dignity at home, he hopped into his 27-year-old rust-colored pickup truck and headed for the Capitol building in Washington. As Charles headed north, he was quite hopeful that his journey to D.C. would make him something more than just the guy who took his cousin to the prom and got lucky. Perhaps when photos are all over the newspaper covers of him standing side by side with President Trump as they both watch Mike Pence's legs swinging in the moonlight, it might help to redeem his cluttered past. Sadly, though, the only thing Charles knew about politics were the lies he had been told by Fox News. While he might not understand a thing about economics, finance, inflation, current events, math or science, those blonde ladies on the telly sure are pretty. If Tucker and the blonde ladies say the election was stolen, then gosh darn it, it was stolen. While Charles may have begun this expedition with a slight hesitation, that feeling disappeared the moment he reached Washington, D.C. on the morning of January 6th. Men wearing ill-fitted camo gear, women missing half their teeth, and Confederate flags as far as the eye could see. These were his people, and he knew that he would be welcomed with open arms. With the city's average IQ dropping by the minute, as more idiots piled in, Charles made his way to where he might better hear the president speak. As he arrived, he noticed the crowd was nearly shoulder to shoulder, with barely an inch to move. One good thing, though, was there wasn't a high school graduate in sight. No one to tell him he was wrong or stupid, only people who think exactly like he does. Charles felt like he would prefer life in an echo chamber. With him living in a small town and being the only resident unable to count to 30, it can get very lonely some nights. Feeling energized after President Trump's speech, he headed for the Capitol building down the street. While Charles has seemed to have maintained a good recollection of the walk down, it was after he led a charge through a barricade and was struck upon multiple times with one of the Capitol police officers' batons. He was then dragged past a security wall, taken inside, handcuffed, and then had his rights read to him. When all was said and done, and the dust had finally settled, Charles felt like he made out fairly well off. He's going to have the nice staff members at the D.C. prison facility take care of his basic needs for a few years, and the judge informed him that he won't have to worry about voting anymore. The best part, though, that's going to be when he gets out. He's going to have a lot more room in his home as the state is going to be auctioning off his hundreds of firearms to pay off the liens he has against his property. Next on our list of folks who've been nothing but disappointments to their parents is Carly Westgreen. The first time Carly ever voted was during the 2020 election for the orange-faced buffoon. Prior to that, she had spent a year soaking in every Republican lie she could find. Whatever fabricated story sounded the least plausible to the average person always seemed to be what made the most sense to Carly. It was Antifa attacking the Capitol to stop the transfer of power to Biden for some reason. Yup, sounds about right to Carly. Mike Pence is actually a lizard person sent from the future to help Joe Biden cheat. Hell yeah, she said when she heard that one. That makes total sense to me. You see, the problem with Carly was absorbing the falsehoods she was told without question turned into a habit for her very quickly. At first she was only addicted to Facebook and Fox News, but when her god emperor told her that Fox wasn't good anymore, she started to watch Newsmax as well. She still watched her regular hours of Fox News, only now she simply lied and said she didn't. Sort of like how she pretended to stop using Twitter after Donny Shits-in-Pants got himself banned. The mindless loyalty she showers upon that idiot with the 14-inch-long sideburns can never fade, even momentarily. Talking over people, yelling incoherently, and what about isms? This would be how she would communicate with others from now on. If she was going to reach her new life's goal of making sure that everyone who knows her also hates her, it was going to take everything she had, which honestly wasn't a whole lot to begin with. Carly decided the easiest group to either infect or alienate would be the dumbest people she knew. Knowing this, the start of her plan would need to wait until church on Sunday. Biding her time until the weekend was a difficult task for Carly. The nonsensical lies and half-truths she had been gobbling up couldn't wait to find an outlet from which to spring forth. With Sunday morning finally here, Carly was about to burst. Wearing her finest Sunday dress, she pulled into the church parking lot and had herself one last terrible thought. What if they cast her out? What if they ask her to leave the one place she feels is a home away from home? These people were in one way or another part of her family. Her moment of worry was gone in an instant, though. Screw them, she thought. Donald Trump was all the family she needed now. As she approached the church entrance, it opened for her, and she was greeted with a smile and a nod. Unable to contain herself any longer, she spat out the first confused thought that came to her mind. Did you see on Newsmax what that dummy President Biden did yesterday? A moment that felt like an eternity passed by before the smile on the gentleman greeter's face twisted slowly into something more resembling that of a snarl. His eyebrows narrowed as he leaned in to mutter something to her under his breath. Carly, my dear, that man is not my fucking president. Next up on our list of folks who would have better served humanity had they been swallowed is Todd Clarkson of Rockford, Illinois. Todd is only 30 years old, but has already begun to resemble a man twice his age. Sadly, this was only one of the many downsides of choosing to be a full-blown alcoholic for the entirety of his adult life. With his mother having 3 jobs and a father that went to get cigarettes a day before he was born, an easy life hadn't been handed to Todd. While being riddled with disadvantages had taken its toll, most would notice it was actually Todd's refusal to admit any wrongdoing that contributed most to his list of repeated mistakes. Whether it be domestic disputes, drunken fights with police officers, or refusing to leave the property after losing his job, time and time again Todd found himself suffering from déjà vu. With his most recent release from state custody being almost 3 years ago, Todd has managed to keep his nose clean for the longest time yet in his adult life, and maintaining his position pumping gas for 11 months was also the longest Todd has ever been gainfully employed. With all of these things starting to get behind him, he knew the next 4 years with President Trump were going to be even better than the 4 years of his first term. Oddly enough, what he had been looking forward to even more was going to be the look on that smug, condescending bitch's face who works at the Burger King next door. From the moment she saw his Trump 2020 bumper sticker months ago, she had made sure to make a snide comment in his proximity any time CNN told her some fake news. With it finally being election day, and Todd having cast his vote, he was left to sit at home watching what only the low IQ folks would dare call the news. As Todd started to see the same vote count irregularities as some of the hosts, his worry and fear began to grow. While not having near enough intelligence to understand how votes are calculated nationally, Todd made up for that with his ability to become enraged in an instant. Deeper and deeper into a pit of lies as the evening wore on, Todd was lucky if he got himself an hour's rest before his work alarm started to blare. Rampaging his way to work early so he could give that Rentoneer full, Todd stormed into the Burger King and didn't bother to wait in line. He marched straight up to the young ladies' register, pushed an elderly couple out of the way and began to berate her about the lies he had consumed the night before. "That old man didn't win shit," he screamed at her and everyone else in the restaurant. "Donald Trump won that election by a landslide, and you all know it," he bellowed at the top of his lungs. "Sir," the police officer said calmly from behind him, "I'm going to need you to let go of that girl's uniform." Todd began to let his head turn slowly until he could see the two police officers pointing their firearms at him, and the unlucky teenage cashier he had at some point grabbed a hold of. How long had I been yelling about the election for? He asked himself, not realizing he had been screaming incoherently at the staff and customers for nearly 10 minutes. The election was stolen, was the last thing out of Todd's mouth before the taser prongs buried themselves into his gut. The moment he had let go of what the courts would soon refer to as his hostage, one of the officers deployed his less lethal option and dropped him like a sack of potatoes. As the two officers piled on top of him and placed him under arrest, Todd had a couple of moments to think about where this situation may have started to go sideways. Did I screw this all up? Could I have been lied to all this time? No, he thought to himself. I'm the only one who's got it all figured out. Everyone else is just retarded. We hope you've enjoyed watching this video and would love it if you considered subscribing to our channel. There will be a lot more clips coming out, and we have so many more mega morons to cover. Thank you again for watching, and whatever you do, vote blue.